We found out this week that the Trump administration is trying to get NASA to put a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030. Why is that? Well, in short, it's because the moon is dark and cold and inhospitable, and nuclear power is really useful for operating there. However, there are other factors at play too, namely a lunar land grab that's taking place at the moon's south pole. This is a region where there's not a lot of sunlight, nuclear power is good there, but also because of not a lot of sunlight, it means that there's permanently shadowed craters with lots of water ice, which you can turn into rocket fuel or even drink. So it's good for having a base. Now, lots of other people, lots of other countries want to go there as well, not just NASA and the US, but also China and Russia, who are in fact trying to build a base together there by the mid-2030s. Now, you can't own any real estate on the moon due to something called the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, but you can effectively own and control territory there by putting sensitive assets down and saying no one else can come close because it's too dangerous or risky or sensitive. That's exactly what a nuclear reactor would do if you put it on the surface. So the plan is to put a nuclear reactor down before the Russians and the Chinese can do it, and then we have control of our little slice of the pie. We can build our moon base and have water to drink and make rocket fuel from and spread out into the rest of the solar system and go on to Mars. However, there's a problem. The problem is that while we're pushing this nuclear power on the moon, we're also taking money away from other nuclear science projects, most notably something called the creation of radioisotope power sources. These are not nuclear reactors. Instead, they're hunks of plutonium that heat up inside a box, and you take electricity and heat out of that. And that's how you power spacecraft in the distant outer solar system. RPS units are how things like the Voyager probes went to interstellar space, or how we sent Cassini to Saturn. And in fact, there's another mission called Dragonfly launching later this decade or early next that's meant to go to Saturn's moon Titan to look for signs of habitability and life there and other cool stuff. And it won't be able to do that without an RPS unit. In fact, the RPS unit that is currently earmarked for Dragonfly appears to be the last one we really have. After that, according to the Trump administration's latest proposals, we will phase down this whole ability to even create these things and send them out into space, which could really close a door on the outer solar system. Pretty sad. There's also another thing that NASA was working on with the Department of Defense called a nuclear thermal rocket. Now, it sounds like science fiction, but it is reality, and the whole point of this was to shorten the amount of time it would take to get from Mars to Earth, Earth to Mars, which would be very useful if you were an astronaut on one of those missions not wanting to get cancer from being blasted with cosmic radiation and stellar flares. Unfortunately, this joint project between NASA and the Department of Defense no longer exists. It is officially canceled and consigned to the ash heap of history. And again, that's largely due to budgetary moves by the Trump administration. So, is it good or bad that we're pushing for nuclear reactors on the moon? I don't know. I just hope that it doesn't close off more than it opens for us in space exploration.